Welcome back. You're listening to the panel discussion, Foundations of Enterprise IT, Modernizing for a Secure Agile Government, sponsored by Leidos on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. I'm your host, Jason Miller. My guests today are Greg Garcia, the Chief Information Officer at G6 of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Michelle Sparrow-Walker, the Department Director in the Information Resource Management Bureau Systems and Integration Office at the Department of State, Todd Simpson, the Chief Product Officer for the Department of Health and Human Services, Kelly O'Connor, a Product Manager for the Veterans Affairs Department's Digital Services Team, and Angie Heisey, the President of the Civil Group for Leidos. Greg, that last segment brought up this challenge that I think, Michelle, you also have around this expanded cloud, these moving data centers, because you guys also are not centralized. And I don't think anyone here actually on our panel has a centralization issue. It's always a very decentralization issue. So maybe, Michelle, jump in and start us off with this idea that how's the cloud going to both make things hopefully easier with that decentralized nature of the State Department?
Well, one of the things that we are challenged with our overseas data centers is being able to consolidate those. We have, posts in 200 different locations around the world, all of which have their own on-premise data centers, and because we have a need to maintain command and control at those facilities, we'll never be able to completely eliminate those data centers, although we are virtualizing the infrastructure and optimizing what is there. But what we're really looking to do is improve our connectivity into the cloud from overseas, as opposed to right now we're having to backhaul data domestically into the cloud, which creates poor performance and things of that nature. So as we explore more innovative and modernization opportunities, we're looking at managed services, for instance, for wide area networks, so that we can reduce the troubleshooting and the various different layers of organizations that we have to go through when we're having bandwidth and latency issues overseas, but then also overseas trusted internet connections, so that we can get into the cloud quicker. If we can move the connection into the cloud closer to our overseas posts, we know that we can significantly improve the performance and the use of the cloud, which has big benefits from a collaboration perspective, because our overseas mission, requires our diplomats to communicate with local host nations, as well as our agency partners, as well as back home domestically. So being able to collaborate in the cloud is a huge benefit from a mission perspective. And
I know OMB is trying to address the trusted internet connection,
yes,
the TIC, so it's a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
But one thing that's interesting is this virtualization and
yeah,
trying to kind of, they're not going to be able to give up their data centers, but at least they're going to make them more efficient. I
yes,
guess that's the key play here.
Absolutely, and in fact, we have, in some places we've been able to regionalize, particularly some of our classified processing. We've been able to create these regional hubs for classified processing and move some of that work out of the individual posts into a regional environment. So again, we are reducing the footprint where we can, but we just cannot completely eliminate what OMB defines as a data center. Right.
Greg, do you see some similarities of what you're facing with what Michelle's talking about?
So absolutely, we're as the Corps of Engineers, we're 88% not on camps, posts, or stations, right? So it's kind of a U.S. Army, but not on U.S. Army facilities. So we have that same challenge of you have to have some commo gear to just connect to the internet at these facilities. So there's some residue racks that you just have to operate in today's connected world. So whether that's just one rack or two racks, and then really gets back to mission analysis, what kind of mission you have to get after. I think one thing I'd like to highlight is so the network's kind of the highway, the byways, but what we're also looking at is what data are we pushing around? Is there a more efficient way to push less data around where we can, again, not clog the highway? So we can gain efficiencies by reducing AIS use of the same data, just pushing the differences as we build better connectivity to the cloud. So it's kind of a two thrust there about not only improve the roads, but improve the carpooling on these roads, right? If you can kind of think that way about how we live here in DC, right?
That's
so 395 HOV is awesome, but if it's accidents or jam-packed, it's really not any faster than anything else. So really encourage that 3-person per vehicle rule, right? So let's use data once, or push it around once, or just send the delta of that data around, especially when you do a lot of GIS mapping, a lot of flood inundation stuff. So it's really about both ends of that stick.
Angie, jump in a little bit from your perspective when you hear about these challenges of decentralized agencies but need some centralized services. Is that a trend you're seeing? Because Todd talked briefly about hybrid cloud. We talked a little bit about that, the popularity of it. Is that what we're hearing here too? Is that push toward hybrid?
Yeah, so I think Greg and Michelle, the challenge that they have is actually common across a lot of companies, it's across a lot of organizations and enterprises, and I think, I liked Greg's highway analogy because I think as you move stuff to the cloud, you can put layers of applications and data analytics and machine learning on top of it so that you are only pulling down the information that is really decision quality as opposed to bulk load data that then you have to have some local application to do the analysis on. And so as the cloud matures and as all those services on top actually get better, it really does make the entire infrastructure significantly more efficient.
And that's the key here, as Greg and Michelle were talking about. They don't want to be stuck on the highway with all this data, but at the same time, they want to make sure their highway is also 65 or 70 miles an hour. We're going to continue, I'm sure, Greg, the entire discussion about this. Let me turn to Kelly, because I think this all comes back to the bigger point, which is around the business value and this idea of getting the data to the right people at the right time to make the right decisions, or in your case, ensuring that the veterans can get their services that they need quickly, easily. So talk maybe a little bit about the business value, explaining that as it relates back to moving to the cloud.
Sure. So one of the things VA is relentlessly focused on in our cloud strategy are outcomes. So not just cost savings, but more importantly, improving veterans' access to healthcare and benefits. So I can give you an example of just one product. So I mentioned we've launched 45 products over the past 2 years. One of them was a very simple online application for healthcare. So VA gets about 600,000 applications each year for healthcare, and in 2015, just 10% of those were coming in online. So what that meant was a veteran had to go to a facility or mail in an application or call a call center. So what our team was able to do with our VA business experts and IT colleagues was stand up and launch a MVP, a minimum viable product in the cloud that was an online application for healthcare. And so the outcome there that we measured, in less than a year, we went from 10% of applications coming in to 40%. So we got close to 300,000 applications with a very simple MVP, a form, with very little advertising. So for us, that's really the end game for cloud, improving veteran experience, not just at VA, but with all the agencies the digital service team supports.
And I imagine you're able to also look at that and say the processing time, because if I don't have to deal with the paper and did I lose the paper, the MVP I'm sure also includes, hey, you forgot to sign your name or you forgot to fill out your address.
And it completely eliminates that because it's automated. So the benefits for, they're not just benefits for the veteran, but in terms of VA, it's faster, it's cheaper, it's fewer errors because of manual processing of a form. And the way we're maintaining these applications is amazing. We're shipping code every day, automated testing, automated deployments. So this is really the model we're already delivering, and we're trying to scale with our partners in IT. I mean, VA is a huge organization, so change is difficult, but we've been moving.
I'm sorry, Greg.
I think Kelly, it's on a great point, right? So the cloud is not all about just production capability, right? The cloud offers you the ability to spin up dev and test so much faster, right? So imagine, people always kind of focus on the end product of cloud of production, but just if you focus on the front part of that, you can spin up, use and de-spin up, install, deinstall, all this capability in a matter of fractions of seconds at consumption prices that really drives innovation. Because what you risk are pennies versus hundreds of dollars when you go through old school development, right? So I spin up a couple of VMs, I trust this new agile process to do some kind of new innovative thing. It fails, turn it back down. It works, innovate. And that's the value of the cloud, is this capability to rapidly test and develop and then field.
Angie?
Yeah, so I think Greg and Kelly are right. So being able to use what we like to refer to as infrastructure as code, and being able to spin up environments immediately for our software developers, our software engineers, to be able to test out capabilities and to be able to run massive tests in hours as opposed to weeks or months, and be able to change the infrastructure requirements. Usually infrastructure as code requires a little bit more upfront planning, but when you automate it like that, it allows for your cycle time and your ability to test to shorten drastically.
Todd, I want to bring you in because you guys at HHS also are going down a very similar path. And I know you and I have talked in the past about microservices, and this is very similar, I think, what Kelly and Greg and Angie are talking about. Maybe talk a little bit about, from your perspective, that benefit, that value that you are needing to explain to the broader audience now.
And I think Kelly really hit it. It drives an agile methodology. And when you couple that with a microservices framework, which you're going to exploit the cloud to get to that microservices framework in most cases, to really get to the automation pieces, the code reuse, and all of the other elements that make up that end solution, the sandboxes, everything that goes into it. And also, just what Greg was saying, just to reinforce, those use cases, we've had those use cases, genomic sequencing at FDA, where we've proven the value in being able to spin up large environments. Now, there is a cost at the back end. You have to invest in that automation technology if you really want to be able to do it right. You really want to be nimble, but there is definitely huge business value, and it's been proven and time tested.
Kelly, Todd brought up something, code reuse. Talk maybe, if you can, a little bit about the importance of looking at what you guys are doing at VA, and can we apply it somewhere else within VA? Can we share it? Is that something that you guys are kind of having that discussion a little bit?
I think so. I mean, I'm not an engineer, so talking about code is very scary, but everything we do, we try to make reusable, not just within VA to our 300,000 colleagues and 5,000 colleagues in IT, but also to other agencies. So using tools like the playbook, I think it's to some of that. We also use one of our plays is default to open. So using tools like GitHub and having code that's developed in the open has been really exciting at VA, and these are new tools. So change is a scary thing, and at VA they're really committed to, the IT team is really open to, we are going to build a culture of innovation, and that means learning new tools and changing the way we work. So just a very specific example, one of the things we've rolled out at VA that's been working really well are brown bag trainings. So when I started at the digital service, I had no idea what GitHub was, and I came from large consulting firms. So actually rolling out training that says it's okay to come and learn a new tool and say you don't know it, that's okay. So I think things like that are scalable and repeatable, and we've done brown bags on GitHub, DevOps, product management, so those have been going really well.
Angie.
So we have a great Agile Development methodology and center in Morgantown, West Virginia, that has done an incredible job of building out this enterprise application framework. We call it LEAF, so Leidos Enterprise Application Framework, that has allowed us to reuse parts of code and allowed our software engineers to use this framework to do everything from build out command and control systems to build out portals for enterprise IT or build out systems for healthcare. And so being able to reuse that same code across so many different applications is incredibly, I'll say, it's empowering for our engineers because they get excited that they only do it once. It gets excited for those in the business that are serving our customers every day, so we can deliver capabilities significantly faster.
And Greg, I know you want to jump in on that note.
Sure. Yeah. Just a couple of great comments have been forwarded here. So training is really important. So just something on an example of, we have this project-wise implementation that we were, it's kind of where the business flows, right? So generally, we are very district-oriented in implementation of projects. But what we found in the last disaster recovery with over 4 hurricanes, California fires, mudslides, is that we had to look outside districts because just there isn't enough skilled people. So these products have to work beyond and with new work teams as they form to do work as changes between the Corps of Engineers, other federal partners, other nation partners. So a lot of this is you have to share your data, right? So your data is not your data anymore. Your business process isn't your business process anymore. It really has to be a shared process. And this Agile development process really adds to that. The cloud adds to that for access, and that's really the learning point we have to get to in the future.
Michelle.
Yeah. Similarly, we're building out a standard operating environment in our enterprise clouds, excuse me, so that there'll be built-in common controls that can be leveraged by other customers who deploy their systems in our environment. So from a DevOps perspective, moving through development, tests, staging, and into production, we'll be able to keep our production environment pristine, because we won't allow developers into that environment at all to make changes. It'll all be code-based and using automation and orchestration to do those updates. So we think that we're going to gain some significant value and benefit in decreasing the time to deliver because of those automated processes.
In fact, if you look at the federal IT dashboard, which I'm a big fan of, I spend probably way too much time there, you see the number of projects that are using this Agile Development Iterative Framework is just up, up, up. I think it's something like 60% of all projects on it. So I'll bring Angie in here, since she's probably the one here that can talk best about the broader trend. Have you seen this acceptance better than in the last 20, 30 years of technology than what we've seen between cloud and then Agile? I can't name something that where the government had said, yes, we're going to take that from industry and run with it. Usually it's we'll take it from industry and crawl with it.
Yeah, so ironically, I started off my career as a software engineer way too many years ago, but it has been something that I've seen not only embraced, but quite honestly, a lot of the talent that we're trying to hire, that's the methodology they were taught, and so that's what they expect when they come to industry, or whether they come to government or commercial companies. And what I have always found is that you get such a better result because it really takes your partnership into account and working with clients to make sure that you're absolutely addressing the right requirements to get those outcomes that Kelly talked about, so that you're delivering real mission value the first time around and not the second or third with iterations from more traditional elements. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Kelly, I know digital service gets a lot of credit and a lot of blame for this. So I imagine that just from your perspective, are you seeing that within VA as well, just that acceptance of not just cloud, but that the move to Agile? I mean, is that something that not only do you promote it, but people come to you?
Yeah, and I don't think digital service is the know-it-all for that. We consider ourselves learn-it-alls as well. So the one thing I will point out is that I think a lot of times what we're seeing is people calling things agile that are just waterfall really fast, done really well. And I think that's fine, like we're all learning, but no, the VA OI&T team has been open to agile and these new methods. Now I think getting to things like DevOps and shipping code every day and automated testing, for us that's the next level. So we're really focusing on, I think the automated testing is really just so beneficial.
I've seen that throughout as well. Well, let's take a quick break and come back. We can continue our conversation, maybe jump into some questions like cybersecurity. Who knows? We are listening to the panel discussion, Foundations of Enterprise IT, Modernizing for a Secure Agile Government, sponsored by Leidos on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM.